We, the members of parliament, from the refugee hosting communities in Garissa County, having hosted refugees for over 3 decades, and our people having shown great magnanimity and hospitality, would like to air our displeasure and anger on recent occurrences as relating to the conduct of the Principal Secretary for Immigration Services and the United Nations and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. The Ushirika plan, which basically is the one of saying integrating the hosting communities and the refugees, currently being spearheaded by the Department of Refugees and UNHCR, is undertaken without any form of public participation and engagement with political leadership, local civil society organizations, the refugee hosting communities, the refugees themselves, and all other critical stakeholders as provided under Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Instead, the department has at best been engaging itself occasionally with the county government of Garissa. This gross violation of the principle of the Constitution cannot be allowed to continue. We therefore demand for cessation of all talks being undertaken under the Shirika plan or the integration plan before substantive engagements is done with the refugee hosting communities as well as all the other stakeholders I mentioned. The Refugee Affairs Secretariat under the leadership of the Principal Secretary, Professor Bitok, is highly mismanaged and a den of nepotism and favorism. It is important to mention that 5 out of the 6 recently recruited Assistant Commissioners of Refugee Affairs hail from Professor Bitok's community. 5 out of 6. 5 are Kalenjins, 1 is from another community. That all the personnel in the department, save for 2, hail from other than the refugee hosting affairs, refugee hosting areas. Professor Bitok therefore runs DRS, the Department of Refugee Affairs Services, as a close-knit cartel of stooges. We therefore demand for immediate cancellation of all the recent recruitment spending an independent human resource audit by an independent government entity. As for UNHCR, we regret that UNHCR has taken for granted the generosity and magnanimity of the refugee hosting communities for the longest time, for hosting refugees in an ecologically fragile ecosystem that has left the area completely degraded and the environment destroyed. The refugees rely on energy and shelter from immediate environments. Thus, they have continually degraded our environment in search of fuel wood. All the wildlife that was there in the Dab and Fafi constituencies are gone. The refugees now are going all the way to 100 miles from the refugee camps themselves to go and get firewood. UNHCR has not provided any support to address this area. Less than 2%, usually allocated for energy provision, is far less than the needs of the refugees. Of the budget of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, less than 2% is allocated for energy. We find it bizarre that a UN agency that ought to espouse the highest standards of international environmental principles operates with wanton disregard to the refugee hosting areas' environment. The irresponsibility of the UN Refugee Agency has occasioned refugees to rely on firewood fetched from all over, as much as 100 kilometers, 100 miles in every direction. In the world where refugees use firewood as their source of energy, the Dab and Hagadera and what do you call Kakuma are the only refugee camps in the world where firewood is used for energy. In any other one, they are given ethanol, am I right? Sure. They are in any other, all over the world. Ethiopia, just next door here. Dolo. The refugees are not allowed to go and cut trees. The UNHCR supplies them with ethanol for their energy. The United Nations World Food Program uses heavy trucks to transport goods to the Dab and has completely destroyed the road network and has led to areas being cut off from road transport during this El Nino period. Despite decades-long calls for tarmacking the Dadaab-Garissa Road in order to sustainably address the perennial road network, WFP has not, and the other UN agencies, offered to undertake the most minor road works. Instead, they have worked towards exacerbating the already critical situation by putting huge and overloaded trucks on a poorly maintained roads that are not all-weather. Finally, during these trying times, when a severe drought is closely followed by flash floods occasioned by the onset of El Nino, UNHCR, which is the lead agency within the refugee camps complex, hasn't found it necessary to initiate an emergency response program to the refugee hosting communities of Fafi and Dadaab. We find it utterly unconscionable that UNHCR hasn't found it appropriate to trigger an emergency response to alleviate the loss of lives and the livelihoods for the refugee hosting communities, as well as the refugees themselves in those areas we mentioned. We therefore urge that first, the government takes immediate steps to address the issues that we have now said in as far as the management of the Department of Refugee Affairs is concerned, or refugee services. For your information, out of 70 employees who work at the headquarters here for DRS, only 2 of them come from northern region. Not even from Dadaab and Fafi, but from northern region. Only 2. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees has got an office here, and I think they employ more than 2,000 people.
We are here seated with a lot of pain because the Kenyan government refugee policy is managed by UNHCR. There is no any other country in the world where the refugee policy is managed by UNHCR. DRS is funded by UNHCR. It has to do everything that has been given and ordered to by UNHCR. UNHCR has requested for camps to be opened. They were given camp. Kenya government said yes, yet they are not operating. UNHCR have requested for all sorts of help from Kenya government, and Kenya government said yes. We have never gotten as host communities our shares. The only time, I underline, the Kenyan government put its foot down when they have said we want to close the camps. That time UNHCR came to them, and the only time we got help from UNHCR was that time, where they given us a program called KDEC. And that program itself is a loan to the people of Kenya. Small and loan, a kitty loan. UNHCR have defined for Kenya government refugee affected areas to mean 50 kilometers. Nowhere else in the world is refugee affected areas only 50 kilometers squared. In Pakistan, the whole of Peshawar and Zawahir province is considered as refugee affected areas. UNHCR have told Kenya government we are going to help you give scholarships, what's called Elimu scholarship, which is 4,000 in number. And they said we are only going to give host community 150, the rest is going to the refugee community. Kenya government is not getting its share of the resources it needs from UNHCR. Billions of money have gone down that place. As we speak today, the only operating airstrip in northern Kenya is the Dadaab refugee camp. No plane from Kenya can land there without the clearance of UNHCR security officers, as we speak. Even if we want to give help, we have to get a clearance from UNHCR Dadaab.
Occupation force, right?
It's an occupational force. If you go to their camp in Dadaab, he cannot get in without a clearance from DMO, head of the person. I can't get in there. It's a fortified institution with a lot of laxity. It cannot even control the person. Kenya government cannot even control the personnel who are working for UNHCR. There's a lady who is the deputy country representative. She's the one who is running the Kenya refugee policy. She's called Ivan. She has been here for the last 15 years. Every time she finished 3 years, she's taken for a small operation somewhere else. 3 months, she comes back. Ivana. She left the last 4 months. She's back again, just to make sure the Ushirika plan goes through. Ushirika plan is a hoax without the consultation of the community. We have never been consulted. The host community doesn't know what's going on. The refugee doesn't know what's going on. As he said, the only place in the world where refugee fuel is sourced from fossil fuels is the Dadaab refugee camp.
No, it's sourced from the environment.
From the environment, fossil fuels. Yes, from the environment is the Dadaab. Dolo is not there. And this firewood is gotten from as far as 500, 600 kilometers up to Bodai, up to Balambala Danyere. That's where the firewood is not coming from. UNHCR doesn't want to hear that. They say we are going to help the security forces there. The only forces they are helping is the ones which have been attached to them, protecting them. 5 kilometers outside the depth, they will not give even a single coin for fuel. They have gotten a safe haven to work in this country. We are telling the Kenya government to put its foot down. We are talking to the professor, telling him that the refugee affairs you are running is a refugee affairs service being run and controlled from Geneva. It's not us to go to Geneva and ask for funds. It's them to come here and bring the funds. We should not be going as a community to go and look for funds there. We are holding these refugees, we are giving them the generous to host them. We cannot talk today and say that the road linking the Dab to Garissa is not tarmacked. While 1 billion was the budget of UNHCR for every year for the last 30 years, yes, $1 billion US. They could not even tarmac the road they're using. It's only them who are using those roads. The trucks, the foods, everything, that's the road they're using. They have never paid even a coin for that road. The Dab could not have been like this today, and Fafi could not have been like this today. We are asking Kenya government to take its foot down. It's not a matter of talking to the governor, it's a matter of talking to the host community. We are crying with a lot of pain, saying that the next 30 years of this generation UNHCR has started, of refugees in the camps have started. We want this next 30 years. It's not a matter, we want this next 30 years to be not 30 years of talks, deliverance, and action, so that the host community can get the benefits it deserves. Otherwise, we will not allow this Jericho plan to go on without the consultation, engagement, and ring-fencing of the host community. That's our take.
Good morning. I'm the County MP Garissa, and I stand by the statement by the leadership of Garissa. We are all here, apart from 2 who are also out of the 6. I think we are 4 here, and they also stand by this statement. It's not one-sided. It's for the whole county. I don't understand that the UNHCR have funds to cater for the host community plus the refugees, but they are doing nothing. It's only boardroom affairs. They call people, do their own thing. There's no public engagement on this. And unfortunately, we have floods now. The UNHCR and the Refugee Council have not done anything for the host community. At least they will have managed the roads, as my brothers have said. There is no road to the Dab, it's cut off. And as Fafi MP said, if you want to go to the Dab now, you have to have permission to land in the Dab. So I wonder, are we the refugees or we are the host of the refugees? Are we the one who hosting them, or is UNHCR hosting the leadership of Garissa County and its people? So with this, we say they better come clean. They want to bring a bill to JLAC. I'm a member of JLAC. The Deputy Speaker, Farah Malim, is also a member of JLAC. We will shoot everything down until our demands are met. That is the statement. We stand by it. And if there is anything that they want to tell, let them tell the leadership of Garissa County and have public participation on the ground. About recruitment, how can you recruit someone who doesn't even know, who has never hosted refugees? We have been with them for over 30 years. We know what's happening. I think the recruitment will be from people from the north, not necessarily from Garissa, but at least from Turkana and the rest of the northern counties. Hosting communities. We don't mind a Turkana being recruited. We don't mind any, but not people who have never hosted refugees and don't know the problems. That is nepotism. And we don't have trees. With this climate change, at least UNHCR will be having programs for the mothers and youth in Garissa County to be planting more trees in that area. There's nothing going on, and we will not be entertaining anymore. We will stand on our grounds. If they will not meeting our demands, then they should leave the county as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, members of the press. As have been said by my colleagues, that it's a long time since this refugee issue was with us. Over 30 years we've been hosting the refugee community in Garissa County. Unfortunately, I think the UNHCR and the UN bodies have been taking advantage of our silence as leaders of the region. As have been said, there is total destruction of our environment as a result of hosting the communities of refugees. 30 years. At one point, UNHCR was actually giving tenders to people to go and cut trees so that they can be supplied to the refugees. You can imagine you being paid to go and destroy the environment. And while the government and the world is now planting trees, UNHCR is still encouraging the use of firewood by the refugees. The environment within the refugee complex, that is the Dadaab and Fafi constituencies, is totally destroyed. And that is why we have these flash floods. This is why we have all these droughts coming, recurring every now and then. And those who are in charge of actually protecting the environment are actually encouraging and paying for the destruction of our environment. The Ushirika plan was not properly talked about. There was no total engagement of, there was no engagement of leadership of the region and the people themselves, the host communities, who are the victims of this destruction, who are the victims of this neglect over the years. Garissa Dadaab Road is about 100 kilometers. UNHCR has been using, and World Food Program have been using that road only for food transportation. But their personnel travel by air. And they have built for themselves an airstrip within the camp. So you can imagine all the other destruction that is being caused by the heavy lifts of food products and petroleum products on the road. They have not considered it. That is why we cannot today access the Dadaab as people. So you can imagine the neglect of the UNHCR, and it is because we have been silent, we have been tolerating them for so far too long. Now it is high time we sat down with the leader. They sat down with the leadership of the region, not necessarily only the county. There are other elected leaders who have more influence and more impact, and we are being questioned by our people, those who elected us also, why this is happening. How come we have 6 commissioners recruited and none is from the region? How come 70 of people are recruited for the purpose of refugee affairs and none of us is represented in that recruitment, that employment? So I think we need to sit down with what we call Professor Bitok and his team and UNHCR so that we give direction. Otherwise, the Ushirika plan is as good as failed. We will not accept it as it is. Thank you very much.